and I did the international sign for "Do you want to put on tefillin?" And the gentleman I asked did the international sign for "No, I'm not interested." So then a few seconds later, he's by my window. He was like, he did the international sign for "I changed my mind." And so we put on film. And so I told him, it's not your fault. It's just at this time every Jew is just an easy sell for a mitzvah. It wasn't really your decision. Don't think too much about it. The fact that you're, just having these suddenly changes of thought, and it's just this is who we are these days. These are the days, as Arizal says, Kirva Moral Nitzitz. It's a time when the luminary comes close to the spark, and the spark wants to absorb the luminary. It's therefore the desire for a mitzvah is something which is very it's felt during these days. There's a famous story with the Tzemach Tzedek when he was 3 years old. He had his achnasa l'cheder. He had his introduction to be brought into school. The custom is, the first day a child is brought into school, drop him in a talis, shouldn't see anything, and then they throw candies on him. So the day, if I remember correctly, the day of his achnasa l'cheder, it's called the Reinfurnish. I don't know what day it was. The day of the Reinfurnish, it wasn't Parshas Haazinu. The Alter Rebbe was the Balkaira, he was the reader of the Torah, and usually for the Aliyahs, they called up not only the Alter Rebbe, I think, took the first Aliyah, and the Mitler Rebbe the second Aliyah, I think, and then the Tzemach Tzedek was called together with his teacher for the third Aliyah. He was only 3 years old. He was called for the Aliyah. And his mother's yard site was in Sim Gedalia, and she famously offered her life in order to protect her father from a heavenly decree, and she asked in a Jewish court that she should take the place of the Alter Rebbe, and she passed away right after Rosh Hashanah. So when the Alter Rebbe was reading the Torah for the Tzemach Tzedek's Aliyah, for the third Aliyah, he read the words, Yimtze'eu be'eretz midbar. He found them faithful to him, accepting the Torah in a desert land. And when Alter Rebbe read those words, he cried, and tears fell onto the Sefer Torah. Just thinking about, just the setting. Here, this boy's his mother passed away, and this verse is how it expresses how a Jew searches for Hashem in a desert land when there's no, things are difficult. He found them faithful to him in a desert land. So Rashi comments on this verse. That was just a story I wanted to share. Anyway, so Rashi comes in this verse and he explains what does this mean that we found him. He found them faithful rather in desert land. So the Rashi, he found them to be faithful to him in the desert. They accepted upon themselves. They accepted upon themselves his Torah, his sovereignty, and his yoke. All the nations, God asked them to want the Torah, no one else wanted the Torah. The Jewish people were faithful to him, they accepted upon themselves these three things: the Torah, his sovereignty, and his yoke. Why does Rashi say three things? Where does it come from those three things? So this is a continuation of a verse before. As in the Torah, Yaakov Chab Nachalasa. Yaakov is the rope of his inheritance. And Rashi explains what's the emphasis of the rope of his inheritance. Rashi says that Yaakov is like a rope. Just like a rope is made up of many strands, so too Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, each of them has their own merit. And Yaakov uniquely has three merits. Why does he have three merits? He has a merit of himself, a merit of his father, and a merit of his grandfather. That's why Yaakov is called the rope of his inheritance. He has a triple merit. And so, corresponding to those three merits, Rashi mentions the three characteristics of the Jewish people that they accepted upon themselves: his Torah, his sovereignty, and his yoke. So let's understand what those things are, because they're very pertinent right now, because we're reading this part of the Torah as we always do, either Parshas Haazinu is read on the Shabbos Shuvah, the Shabbos between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, or like this year, right after Yom Kippur. So it's talking about the way you're supposed to begin the year. So the Torah says how you're supposed to begin the year. Begin the year, think about accepting upon yourself His Torah, His sovereignty, and His Torah, His sovereignty, and His yoke. What are those three things? What is the addition of sovereignty beyond Torah and the addition of yoke beyond sovereignty? So what does Torah mean? Accepting His Torah means, the parallel for this would be a teacher and a student. A student trusts the teacher. The teacher is not just a teacher, the teacher is also an educator, and he is meant to give the student a guidance in life. So the student follows the teacher, the student listens to the teacher, and if it makes sense to the student, he does what the teacher says, and even if he does understand, he still may trust the teacher enough to follow the teacher and whatever the teacher asks him to do, even if it's something that doesn't make sense to him. But that's as far as it goes. In other words, a student does not belong to the teacher. A student doesn't have the student is his own man. He do what he wants, and his relation to the teacher is just as much as he would like to give the teacher. It's not something he has to do. If, let's say, the teacher asks him to do something which is difficult, so the student is not going to encumber himself with difficulty to do what the teacher asks him, although he may trust his teacher, that the teacher means his benefit, but he doesn't have to do something the teacher asks him to do. If it's too difficult, he could say, no, I don't want to do it. But then there is another kind of relationship, the Rashi mentions, the second model relationship, where not only are you learning His Torah, not only are you a student of Hashem, Torah emphasizes how God is the teacher, we're the student. There's a deeper relationship. And that is, Hashem is also our king. Malchusa, He's sovereign. What's the addition of sovereignty beyond a teacher? So it says in the Torah that when the Jewish people asked for a king, so Shmuel was very upset at them, and he gathered the people together, and he asked them, why are you doing this? Why are you asking for a king? Because they were asking for a king for the wrong reasons. They said, let us be all the nations have kings, we should also have kings. There is a spiritual meaning of having a king, because the king is meant to be a tzaddik, and listening to the king is meant to be like having someone in the world that represents having a king is meant to be a lot more than it seems. It's supposed to be that the king is this perfect tzaddik, and everyone is hearing from the king the desire of Hashem. They have someone in this world who is relating to them what Hashem wants them to do. That's the way things are meant to be. But they were asking for the wrong reasons, and that's why Shmuel rebukes them. But in his rebuke, you see what the meaning of the monarchy is in Judaism. He says it says there in Shmuel chapter 8, he says, you want a king? You know what the king's going to do? A king is going to take your boys to be for his chariot and for his wars. And he's going to take your daughters to be his maidservants. And he's going on and on describing how difficult things are going to be if they have a king. And there's an argument in the Talmud if Shmuel was merely trying to scare them, or was Shmuel actually conveying to them this is the halacha, this is the definition of a king. So the Rambam in the Laws of Kings, Ram actually says that the king actually does have control over the people in a big way. Rambam says that a king, if he wants to, he can impose a tax upon the people. Rambam says over there in chapter 6, halacha 2, the king can make a condition with the soldiers that he will take half of the whatever they conquer, or all the lands, all the either all the movable objects, and not take the lands, or take the land, not the movable objects. Rambam says that in Perek Dalet, chapter 4, Says more. He says the king has permission to put a tax upon the people for his needs, just for his needs, not because there's a need of the people, or for the sake of his war. So he can make a tax, and you cannot. You have to pay the tax. The Rambam could say that anyone who tried. The Rambam says the king could say anyone who cheats out of paying the tax will be killed. The Rambam says in halacha 2 over there in chapter 4, he sends out messengers throughout the whole Jewish border, and he takes people for soldiers, and he even can appoint people just to run in front of his chariot, just to his honor. He can take from the best guys among the Jewish people to be his personal servants. It continues in halacha 3. Let's say he needs a tailor, he needs a whatever he needs. He takes from the people you're going to be my tailor. You're going to be you're going to make shoes for me. Whatever he needs, the king can take from the people, and they have to do this for him, and he pays them. He can take all the animals, and all the servants, and all the maidservants, and he pays for it. But he has full jurisdiction. Halacha 4, the Rambam says the king can take from the whole Jewish border women to be his concubines or to marry them. So the king has the Chassidic Mishnah says that the Rambam clearly holds that the king is the Rambam holds that when the Shmuel spoke about the what a king is, and the Jewish people asked for a king, he wasn't really threatening them. He was telling them, actually, the halacha, this is the fact that a king has all of these rights. Okay, so talking about Hashem being our sovereign, our king, versus Hashem being our teacher, adds a lot to the equation. Not only is Hashem our teacher, we have to follow what Hashem asks us to do, because it makes sense to us. With the king, there's no chachmas. The king, there's no thinking about this way, thinking about that way. There's no discussion. The king says and gets to do it. If it's difficult, it's not difficult. The king is in control. The king can do whatever he wants. So it says in Gemara the expression "Omar Malka Okratura." If the king says something, a mountain is uprooted. The king has full right to do whatever he wants. So saying Hashem is our king versus saying Hashem is our teacher, so that's an additional layer in the relationship. Clearly, Hashem is not just our teacher; He's also our king. We cannot say no to things that Hashem asks us to do. We don't have the right to say no. We belong, but the Rashi adds another layer to the equation. And Rashi says Hashem is not only our king; He's also how do we become faithful to Hashem in the desert? What does it mean? In the midbar. What does it mean that Hashem found faithful people in the desert? They accepted upon themselves the Torah, His sovereignty, and His yoke. What's the addition of the word yoke? So you might want to say like this: a regular king, although he has a right to do whatever he wants, he doesn't control your life. You have your own private life, and if he asks something, you have to listen to him. But by Hashem, you might say, okay, Hashem asks for more. Hashem asks us to do things all the time. There's a mitzvah, let's say, of studying Torah, that's all the time. You're always supposed to study Torah. It's a mitzvah, even when you tie your shoes, there's a rule how you're supposed to tie your shoes. So you may say that the yoke of Hashem versus a regular king is Hashem asks for more. That there's a constant burden. Hashem is giving us a constant command. But if that's what Rashi meant, he wouldn't need to add another word, because that's just it's still a king. Just a king who asks for more. Even when you're eating, let's say. You have a mitzvah there's a mitzvah to say a bracha before, you have a mitzvah to say a bracha afterwards, to think of Torah. Okay, so Hashem's monarchy is bigger, extends more. He asks for more. From the cradle to the grave, before and after the cradle, and before and after the grave, there's always a message Hashem is telling you. Okay, but that's still part of His sovereignty. It's not another layer of relationship. Rashi's addition, Rashi is saying to us that not only did Hashem find those who are faithful to Him in accepting His Torah and His sovereignty, Rashi adds a layer by saying the word His yoke. What's the addition of yoke? So it says in the Torah, in Parshas Yisro, God says to Jewish people when He gave them the Torah, "V'yisem li segula," you should be for me a treasure nation, a treasure. And the Mechilta explains, "Shetiu atem knuyim li," that you should belong to me, you should be acquired to me. You should be learning, you should be involved in learning Torah. Actually, the previous Shabbat said the word oiskim doesn't just mean to be involved. Oiskim means that you're doing something and you're diligently focused on it, like a businessman. Asek means a business. The previous Rebbe says to be involved in learning Torah means that you care about it so much that you share it with anyone you can, like a businessman who's interested in selling it to anybody you can. But the Mechilta says you should be involved in it, and then he adds a line: don't do anything else. What's the addition of not doing anything else? What is he adding in there? You should be acquired to me. You should be involved in Torah and not involved in anything else. There's a commandment of Hashem, all of your deeds should be for the sake of Hashem. Or in language of King Solomon, in all your ways you should know Hashem. What King Solomon is saying to us is not only does Hashem have something to ask for us all the time, not only are we responsible to follow what Hashem is asking us to do all the time, King Solomon is adding a whole layered relationship. As in the language of Mechilta, you should belong to me. You don't have anything of your own. In the model of relationship of king and the people, so the king is the king, the people are a separate entity. They have to follow what the king says. And the king may ask them to do lots of things all day and all night, but they're still their own entity. The idea of a yoke means you don't have anything else. That why is it that all your deeds should be for the sake of Hashem? Because there aren't anything that belongs to you. There isn't anything of your own. Whatever is in your possession is in the possession of Hashem. You're acquired, you belong to Him. So it's not that Hashem asks you to do something while you're eating. It's more like you're eating, you belong to Him. Therefore, since you belong to Him, so therefore there's no moment that you're not serving Him. In other words, let's say the Torah didn't tell us to learn Torah all day. Let's say it happens to be that factually that there is something that God is asking us to do every moment. Okay, but let's say He didn't ask us to do something every moment. Let's say Torah wasn't holistic, wasn't encompassing everything. There's still another layer that Oila is adding. Oila is saying you accepted upon yourself Hashem as not just as a king, but you accepted the yoke of Hashem. That you belong to Him. You don't have anything of your own. That you are His and He is yours. There's nothing of your own. It's not only in quantity that Hashem's rule and Hashem's commandments extend and they guide us every moment of our lives. It's more, you belong to Hashem. That's the addition of the third word that Rashi adds. And not only are we students to Rasei, we learn His Torah, He tells us what to do, and we listen, we learn from Him, He's our teacher. Not only is He our king, that if you ask Him to do something, we have to do it. But much more than that, there's a whole different layer, oilai. The Jew doesn't have anything of his own. That a Jew accepts Hashem, accepts the yoke of Hashem, he belongs to Hashem. And as we're beginning the year, Hashem tells us to read this Torah portion because this is the way that we need to approach our relationship to Hashem. Not just that we have to listen if God asks to do something, but in all your ways you know Hashem because you feel that whatever you're doing belongs to Hashem. As we learned last week, amazing thing, we learned last week that Rebbe says that when you involve Hashem, when you know Hashem in the material part of your life, and you do things for the sake of Hashem, even for the very mundane. So just like God is infinite, so too you will find infinity, you'll find abundance in your material life. If you connect with Hashem in the most material things, since God is infinite, He'll connect with you also in your most material things, and you'll see abundance, you'll see infinity, you'll see a additional layer of bracha that's beyond nature. Just if you're knowing God when you're involved in mundane, so you will see God in the mundane. You'll see infinity, you see abundance in the mundane, and this is the power Hashem gives us during these 10 days of tshuva to be in touch with our deepest selves. That we are not only do we learn from Hashem as students, not only are we subjects of the King, but that we belong to Him. And this is what you're supposed to approach the new year. And not only do we do things to say Hashem all day, but we belong to Him. We are His. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'bracha. Agutavach. Questions, comments?
The difference between being subject versus belonging to Him? Subjects don't belong to Him.
They're their own entity. There's people. They just have to listen if you tell them to do something. Then there is a servant. A servant belongs to the master. Yeah. Or in language of Yom Yom, is beyond the servant. There's a soldier. A soldier is someone who believes in the general. And he Gil Khan Shalom, who was talking about the difference between a soldier and a servant. He said, the servant, the person may keep Judaism and everything because they have to. You could have a lousy soldier. A soldier he knows how to throw a grenade, he knows how to hide, he knows how to jump, he knows everything a soldier knows how to do. But a soldier thinks he's going to lose the war. Thinks he's going to lose the war, he's a lousy soldier. A real soldier is someone who believes in his general. Not just he belongs to the army. He has the yoke of being a soldier on the climb all the time. Not only is he, but he believes. A real soldier who believes in the general, he believes it's going to do something. So it's, I guess, you need a deeper layer within this idea of yoke. How do you accept the yoke? The yoke as a servant, accept the yoke as a soldier. You believe in what you're doing.